All right, fans, joining me now on this week's The Final Count Spotlight. He is OVW Legend, Trailer Park Trash. How you doing, Trailer Park Trash?
Pretty good, Ryan. How you doing, man?
Doing pretty good. Thank you for joining me on this episode of The Final Count Spotlight. Glad to have you.
No problem. We finally made it. Took
Yes,
a bit to get
definitely.
here, but we made it.
Oh yeah, we made it. We got it. So getting right into this, when did you decide to get into the pro wrestling business?
It was a dream ever since I could remember as a little kid. As I grew up, that was our hour of getting out of reality each week as a little kid. And, I watched it every week, every chance we could go to the gardens. We did. And, it was just like, it was always a dream of mine that I never thought would be reality. Because in those days, everything was still very kayfabe, and you just didn't hear of any wrestling schools. You still had to try to pretty much maybe get a veteran to take you under their wing and whatnot. So anyway, when I heard about Danny's school opening up, I set it up with Danny and went and met Danny, and the rest is history. But it was really the best thing that ever happened to me as far as a person, because Danny, which it's well known I love like a father and have nothing but the utmost respect for him. But Danny brought out the man in me, so to speak. He took a little boy and made him a man. And
Yes,
so
yes.
I'll always be grateful for that.
Right. For the training that you got from him and everything.
Yeah, like I
An
said, not
opportunity.
just for wrestling, but outside of the business, just
Right.
the life in general. He gave me something I didn't have. He treated me like a son, and it's something I didn't have for a long time. So.
Yes, and that means a lot for sure. Um, who were some of your like inspirations or people that you liked to watch growing up as a kid, or that you enjoyed watching? Or
Probably my the earliest memory I have of having a favorite in those days would have been Jackie Fargo. Remember the Bicentennial Baby, Big Bad John, uh, Plowboy Frazier, Bill Dundee, handsome Jimmy Vade, of course. Those guys.
is there anyone that you like of those guys that you like kind of took what they did their in ring work and made it kind of your own thing? Or
No, not really. That was one thing that was kind of stressed to me early on, because again we were trained old school. You didn't really try to steal anybody's gimmick or
yeah,
take what they did and made your own. And of course, you wouldn't. It was rare anybody come up with too many new moves, because there are really not many new moves out there. People do it in a different way and call it something else, maybe. But the suplex is a suplex. No, I
yeah.
just tried to. I don't know really best way to put it. I almost in some ways tried to just be myself.
Mm.
Uh, and worked the gimmick. You worked what you think. I was basically a brawler. I was a street fighter, brawler, redneck.
Yeah.
So I shouldn't look too fancy anyway.
Right. Gotcha. I gotcha. What was it like being trained by the Nightmare Danny Davis?
Danny was great. And Danny was very smart about how he did things. It would kind of be like a Mr. Miyagi thing, and so to speak. Danny had a way of he was learning things and didn't really know at the time he was learning it.
Right.
But and then later on, it'd be like, oh, well, that makes sense. It makes sense now. Now I know why he did this or that. But Danny was very good at not just throwing you to the wolves and whatnot. And he trained each person. He had classes, but Danny still took the individual one-on-one time and tried to help you in the way that you were. You can't make somebody they're not. So you
Mm.
could either do certain things and do these things, or you can't. And Danny was really good about not trying to get you to do something you couldn't do. He would take what you did, what you could do, and make you better at it. So.
All right. There you go. So now, do you remember your first match? And if so, what was that like?
Oh man, my first match was actually I was still in class, and Danny was running a show. I think in conjunction. I think Danny and Bill Dundee was running a show somewhere in Tennessee, and Danny had the ring and whatnot. And I know myself, Danny, and I think Nick Dinsmore might have been one of them. A very young Nick Dinsmore when he first signed up. and I think one of the referees. We went, set up the ring and whatnot, and of course Danny was in the main event. It was Danny and Bill Dundee against Reno Riggins, and I think it was supposed to have been Steve Dunn, the doll. And I guess something happened. Maybe Steve didn't show up for whatever reason, so they stuck me in with Reno Riggins as his tag partner. I've never worked a match in my life. Didn't have a clue what the hell I was doing. Looked like an idiot, I'm sure, because I felt like an idiot, and was lost completely when the bell rang. But Danny and Dundee, and Reno Riggins, all three worked me through it. And it was just people were into it. They didn't know I was a complete idiot. They didn't have a clue. But that's just how good. That's just how good they were.
Yeah.
And that's what I learned. My best. I think I was at my best at really making people look a lot better than they were. And it's because of Danny and guys like Rip Rogers and Jim Cornette that later on come around. I tried to learn from all of them. And,
So your first match you got to work with your trainer.
Yep,
With
my
Danny
first
Davis.
match was my first match. I was tagging with Reno Riggins, and across the ring was Bill Dundee and Danny Davis.
That's so awesome. That's
I
cool.
might have been in training 4 or 5 months at that time.
Wow.
And in those days, you didn't train 10 weeks and you got a match. That ain't work. You paid your dues, put in your time, work security, be there at every show, set up the ring, take down the ring. I was Danny's right hand man at one time, and it's funny. Some people will say at one time I built OVW, but when we say that, we mean I literally helped build OVW from building benches to painting to whatever we needed to do. I was a company man. I was forever grateful for Danny just to open the doors and allow me to follow my dreams, much less go any further than I did.
Right.
So
correct. Yeah. While we're talking about matches, if you could pick 3 matches, I know that's going to be a tough one, that were your favorite matches, or you could make your top matches, what matches would you pick?
obviously, my top match would be several of them involving Flash Flanagan.
Definitely.
Just not only where we're in, I love him like a brother, and I still do today, and we still talk quite often. But me and him clicked, man. For whatever reason, we knew how to feed off each other, and Flash helped me a lot early on too. I remember one of my first matches also was with Flash at the over at the old Watt Street location, and again, I knew nothing, but Flash being Flash, instead of really getting pissed at me like you would normally do, and those guys get someone just beat shit out of the green turd. They liked me for whatever reason. So after the match, explained things to me. Hey man, and so I was really fortunate to have a lot of people step in and help me out. But Flash would have been top all the way around in any match. But mainly, I would say that our best matches were the street fights at the Louisville Gardens.
Yes.
I know me and him had some damn good matches in Puerto Rico together, and working together too, not just against each other. But those would be my top. Honestly, I had some really good matches with Brian Christopher in Memphis. Brian loved me, and a lot of that was due because of Danny Davis. Brian and all those guys in Memphis knew if Danny had stuck his neck out to get me booked in Memphis, then hey, this kid's all right. You at least got that much respect. They knew you wasn't going to come in and act like a bumbling idiot, and what that a lot of guys do, and that's why a lot of guys that was their first and last day. Come in and act like you're somebody and whatnot. And I was just always taught, early on, especially from Rip, be there early, keep your damn mouth shut, do what you're told.
Exactly.
And that got you a lot further than it did acting like an idiot, for sure.
For sure. No, so that's some awesome. And you and Flash, y'all had, and I didn't realize until I was researching that you all tagged together and were tagging, had numerous matches tagging together. And I'm so familiar with your rivalry and everything. And just
we worked together a lot. Like I said, we worked good together and we worked good against each other. But we just felt, man, we just clicked. Sometimes, in the wrestling business, you have one guy that you can you just click with no matter what, and we clicked. We just and we were both stupid as far as all that crazy hardcore shit we did, we loved the pain. I mean, really, people think, oh, yeah, that shit's bullshit. When you worked me and Flash, or me and Flash worked each other, we always had a goal.
Yeah.
That every night at wrestling, when people's leaving, we want them. We want them walking out saying, well, I know they say this shit's fake, but I tell you what, that one match was real, and that was always our goal. Because it was, with the exception of really hating each other, man, we would beat the shit out of each other and lay it in too. And working other guys hated working us, man. We would chop that shit. We would beat the shit out of people. Have a ball doing it. But the thing was, lay it back in on us. We wasn't the type that would be stiff and then bitch if you're stiff back. Lay it in, man. If you hit me with a belt, there better be there better be something there.
Right.
If not, people see that shit. It's just common sense shit. But yeah, man, we work good together, and we really work good against each other. And there's a trust too. We trusted each other with our lives.
Yeah, and then
He
something
knew
else.
I would always be there for him, and he would always be there for me. So we did a lot of shit together that we would have never ever done with somebody else.
Definitely, and something else I loved about the two of you working together. Y'all worked together throughout the years. Like there was different times in OVW where y'all worked together. In OVW, as far as talking about OVW, y'all worked together.
Oh yeah, not just in OVW, but yeah, in and out of OVW for 25 years.
Mm-hmm.
From day one till the last time either one of us was probably at OVW. 8-10 years ago now, maybe, whatever that is. But in Memphis, we used to work each other up at a place called Circle City Wrestling.
Mm-hmm.
We worked each other in Puerto Rico. We worked each other a lot of places. It wasn't just, and we started getting, for Burt Prentice, we worked each other a lot. It just, when you click with somebody like that, you get booked a lot more. Both of you together, because they know, you're going to give the people one hell of a show and a match, and that's what it was all about. So
exactly. Now, I know you trained in OVW. How did you find out about OVW? How did your time in OVW initially come to be?
I actually was at the Louisville Gardens one night, and I heard Dean Hill making it, because Dean Hill was the ring announcer for USWA, and vaguely caught Dean Hill making an announcement. I thought he said wrestling school. So this was intermission. So, right after the matches was over, I was able to get down there and, ask Dean a little bit. And he told me about, Danny. And then maybe a few weeks later, I was at a Louisville football game, and I'd run into Eric Watts, Cowboy Bill Watts' son, who at the time he was in a tag team called Tecmo Team 2000, something stupid like that.
Oh, wow.
But anyway, Eric played football for U of L, so so I knew who he was from the football, but also the wrestling part.
Right.
So I asked him too. I said, hey man, how did I know your dad? I know how you got in it, but how does somebody that wasn't born into the business? How do you go about getting in the business? And he had told me, he said Danny Davis is getting ready to start doing something up here soon, so just keep your ears open. And then finally, when Danny opened up, I joined.
And the rest, as they say, is history.
The rest is history. But I was, Danny don't do any of these, and this is the only second podcast I've ever done. Mm-hmm. The first one because Wolfie was a good friend of mine and whatnot. But anyway, you wouldn't have known me back then. I was so intimidated. Like just when I had the first meeting with Danny about joining the school, I couldn't even look him in the eyes.
Oh wow!
I was just just like a big old guy, but just like a real quiet. Same way with girls, mm-hmm. A beautiful woman looked at me, tuck and run away. Oh my God, scared to death. But between Danny and Rip Rogers and Jim Cornette, all that quickly left.
There you go. And
so that's why I say I credit. I raised my daughter by myself, and I would have never been man enough or strong enough or responsible enough of a person to do that without Danny Davis.
That toughens you up.
Just from the things he taught you, not just about wrestling.
Right. Now, how did you decide to come up with the name, or how did you get the name Trailer Park Trash?
I didn't, honestly. How I got booked down there, I blew my knee out like I don't know 3 or 4 days into it, and then Danny calls me up. I think it was actually a Thursday night, and he said, "Hey kid, how's your knee?" And I said, "Oh, can't walk on it, whatever." But I was being brought in old school and trained old school, so it is what it is. Well, I wasn't gonna miss a show. And he said, "Well, you're booked for Saturday morning in Memphis
Oh
if you
wow.
want to go." If I want to go, shit. I was happy just being at that time. It was Nightmare Incorporated. It wasn't
Mhm.
OVW yet, and we had me and Sean Venom got us both booked, and we had a show in Evansville at Friday night. And instead of doing what seems to be a thing these days of guys that cancel the Friday night booking so they could get to Memphis the night before and you'd be well rested up because TV you had to be there I think like 7:30 in the morning at WMC TV station. That's where it was filmed at a TV station where Dave Brown obviously weatherman.
Mhm.
But anyway, so me and Sean, we went and worked Evansville at Friday night and drove through the night to Memphis, and we got there. And of course, I was in awe. I walk into a locker room with the guys I grew up watching, and and I'm at the TV station I grew up watching. It was like an out of body experience. Really, it was surreal. And anyway, we're just sitting around waiting to be told what to do, and Lawler calls me into his office, and he's looking at some pictures of it. And he's looking at me, and he said, "I think we're just, what about trailer park trash?" Great. Well, and I didn't really even think anything about what the gimmick meant, or it wasn't even about that. It was, hey, he's gonna because I was Jack Slayer before that.
Right.
That was the only other gimmick I had, other than the intern. And I think everybody at Danny started out as the intern. you
Really.
know, so you wore a mask and the doctors or out nurses outfit, whatever the hell it is. But anyway, so that's kind of how I got started. And I wore, I didn't look the part or anything. But later on, wore the wife beater and whatnot. But I remember after my segment, a few months later, Guy Coffey comes and grabs me. He said, "Hey kid, that was a pretty good interview and whatnot the first time. First time I ever been on TV, much less did an interview,
Mhm.
because that was before TV or Danny did anything like that. So we hadn't even really done any promos or any mic work at all. So that was like legit the first time I'd been on a mic, much less in front of a camera. And I'm standing there with Jerry Lawler and Dave Brown and Lance Russell, my idols, growing up in wrestling. Like, wow. But anyway, I guess it pissed a lot of people off because there's a lot of people living in trailers and mobile homes, down there, and a lot of people calling in, "Hey, I live in a trailer. I'm not trash." But it overwhelmed the switchboard, which was a good thing because I
Yeah.
was I was a heel at that time. So it all in all, it worked out good. And then
Right.
later on when Jim Cornette come around, he Jimmy Cornette's the one that got me, hey, you need to wear a wife beater, look, teach me more about how to actually be the gimmick instead
Mhm.
of just calling myself that. So that's how that come about.
Right. So that's awesome. Like, I can imagine like putting myself in your shoes. Like, you're Jerry Lawler, and you're asking me if I like this
Like I
name.
said, it was I wanted to. You call me whatever the hell you want.
Right.
Shit. I was in awe anyway. I mean,
Mhm.
really, and the guys and a lot of guys really kind of took me under their wing too. I was really surprised because you hear a lot of in those days. You hear a lot of rumors, so to speak, that Memphis was a clique,
Mhm.
and if you didn't fit in the clique, the Memphis clique, you wasn't gonna make it down there. There was a lot of guys one and dones, and I got a lot of it was being trained by Danny, and I guess how I handled myself. But I mean, I quickly made friends with a lot of guys down there. Wolfie and Jamie, me and Bill Dundee become really good friends. Just me and Brian Christopher. Brian loved working me because I was trained by Danny Davis, and Brian didn't need nobody to help him make him look good,
Right.
but I didn't make him look stupid neither.
Right.
Brian knew he could work a 3, 4, 5 minute TV match with me, and I'm going to do everything right and make him look great. So I quickly made friends like that. The only one I really and to this day I still like him. And he'll tell you too. He used to say he just didn't like my gimmick at all. Was Randy Hales.
Oh wow.
Randy didn't like the gimmick whatsoever. Randy was more of a Bruise Brothers gimmick kind of guy, than he was, I guess, Jerry Lawler's comic book character
Yeah.
gimmicks. So that was the only thing with me and Randy. But I got along with Randy great. He always treated me great, even later on after USWA closed up, and then Randy opened up in the same studio and all. My memory's pretty bad sometimes with names because of concussions, but anyway, Randy opened up his own little deal for a little while, and I think he had Cornette come and help book it, and brought a lot of us guys down there because for one, we was already had been on TV in Memphis, so Memphis was a lot like Puerto Rico. Once you was on TV once in Memphis, everybody knew the hell who you were because everybody watched it.
Right.
So that was making the Memphis in those days was a big deal.
Yeah, oh, definitely.
Really big deal. And then later on the WWE days, that wasn't shit. I'd already made, when I made Memphis, WWE stuff wasn't, I was much more content in Memphis and Danny and whatnot. It was just more old school, and that's what, I was happy there. Nothing else could beat that. No matter all the places I've been and the stuff I did after that. Nothing was better than Memphis or Danny's because it was so old school.
Mm-hmm.
And it was exactly what you grew up and watched.
Right. So how did you choose the name Trailer Jack as the name of your finisher? And for anyone who might not have been able to see your work, how would you describe what that finisher was like, or what that finisher was?
Well, the Trailer Jack was a leg drop off the top rope. Danny taught me how to, coming up, in class, you not only did you try to come up, and that was before I come up, or Jerry gave me the trailer park trash gimmick. I've been working on a leg drop for a long time in class. Danny had a dummy, and you threw the dummy in the ring, and that's what you practice on hundreds of times until you never missed. Then you could actually do it on a real person.
Yeah.
So, man, hundreds of times coming off that top rope. And I remember too early on that Danny's ring was pretty damn stiff. It wasn't a lot of give to it. So I mean, when you hit that son of a bitch, my ass calloused up, pretty quickly after the first couple of hundred. You just and after class, that's what a lot of us would do. Would hang around and work on whatever you're going to do. Like me, class was over, throw the dummy in the ring, and I just continuously just keep doing leg drops off the top. You leave the dummy in one spot, move corners, every corner. So at one point in time, there was nowhere, as long as you was inside that ring, it didn't matter what corner of the ring I was in, I could hit the leg drop. Dean Hill actually come up with calling it the Trailer Jack.
Oh, wow.
So
wow, I did not know that.
Dean Hill come up with the Trailer Jack, and Dean Hill also come up with I come from everywhere because my home is mobile.
Yes, I love that. I always love when he say that.
Jerry Lawler in the beginning said the man that he has four homes he has a home that's mobile and 4 cars that's not. That's kind of how originally introduced.
Yeah.
And Jerry had a big time with it, because a lot of times on TV he'd be doing the commentating in those days with either Dave or Lance, because Lance was in and out at that point. He's lived in Florida, I think, retired, but he come up once or twice a month and still done TV, but not every week. So Jerry would go out and do, and he had a ball with it. He'd talk about hot little number I had down at the Waffle House last night, like that. He was, and I remember we did this one bit where I come out and I did actually have this just humongous bruise on the side, and I was a white boy. I mean, I was on Cowboys, but they probably had to check the iris and stuff when I walked out because I was white. But I had just this big, massive bruise on the side. So, and Lawler's telling me, come up with something, 3 or 4 minutes, so I come up with the idea of being abducted by aliens. And I come out, and Lawler introduces me, and this is third week of TV for me. And I come out and talk about how much he's my idol. I'm putting Lawler over, obviously, and whatnot. And he's my idol. And I was telling him about, he asked me, he said, "How'd you get that big old bruise on there?" I said, it's a funny thing. And it went on about, I was sitting there with my old dog Blue, and sitting there drinking beer, watching watching wrestling on TV, and he said it's a colored TV, and I was like, nah, back then we just had the rabbit ears and whatnot, in black and white, and I said, there's talk about this big light that come down and all this shit, and then I wake up and there's these little green guys, man, and they're sticking these probes in there. And so we had fun with it early on as far as that goes. But it got to be more serious.
So much fun.
It got to be more serious later on. Danny come up with the idea of turning me babyface, which we all laughed. You think they're going to holler "Go Trash, go!" but I still at that time didn't have a clue what I was doing. I just listened to Danny. But, take away the name part of it, Danny I was one of the fans, and I really was. It was like, Trailer Park, the name wasn't to be the meaning. It was just, hey, people are going to call you that. That don't mean you still can't do what you want to do in life. All you got to do is work hard. Kind of similar to the Hogan shit, but it was legit. I was told I couldn't wrestle. I was told I couldn't do a lot of shit. Hold my beer because that even gives me more drive, and that's basically what my gimmick was about at that point. It was, hey, I'm one of you guys. Anything could happen. Follow your dreams, man. And the people got behind me, and they got behind that. And they tried to turn me back heel one time. It never worked. In fact, I think I turned on my cousin Crazy to join teams with Rip Rogers. And I whacked Crazy in the head with a chair and give him like 36. He had to get like 36 staples in his head and shit. And the people's cheering. People they just wouldn't they wouldn't fall for it. One time, Danny decided for the show to get really family oriented, so he took the trash out of the name. I was just called Trailer Park. That didn't last long. People didn't like that at all either. So it was like once Danny got me over, I stayed over. And it was easy, but the stuff I learned from Danny and Rip, I was putting the program for Rip for almost about a year. First 6 months, hated it, couldn't stand it. It sucked, couldn't get my shit in, and the whole time Rip was teaching me how to work, and I didn't. I just woke up one day and the proverbial light bulb clicked on. Oh, shit, this kind of makes sense now. And it just, I love the business. I still do. I don't watch it anymore. I'm not a fan of today's wrestling and not knocking it. Times change. I'm old school. And so I prefer to have my memories. And I did enjoy, I don't know how many of these podcast things I want to do, but I do, I have found myself, I do have fun talking about it, talking about the old days, because that's what it was all about, was the memories. And the
Definitely.
fun,
And that's why I love to do this podcast myself, because I love getting to talk to, I was messaging Johnny the other night and telling him, first of all, thank you to him for reaching out. I've told him thank you a couple times for reaching out to you, because if the fans don't know that are out there, Johnny Spade hooked me up with this interview, and I definitely thank him for that. And
the son bitch called me the other night after he'd been doing a little bit of drinking and got a little mouthy with me, and I told him, I said, "You blind son of a bitch, I'll still kick your ass." So, but you gotta love Smooth, man. The Spade.
Yeah.
We had some good times. I'll tell you a quick story about him real quick. I had a MMA promoter contact me. This is 25 years ago at least. About he was having an MMA show some town in Indiana, Brownsville, about 2 hours away from Louisville. But he said I want to book some wrestling matches. Mm-hmm. And he was given my name by somebody. And he said, "Do you think can you get? This is what I'll pay for 3 or 4 matches. Can you book some guys? And bring them with you. You handle the wrestling part. I'll handle the MMA part." Mm-hmm. I think the guy was like $2,500. Well, who did I learn from? I learned from Danny Davis. Get students. They ain't got to pay them.
Right.
Grab a few guys like Johnny Spade, a few other guys, give them $50 a piece. TPT's gonna make some money. So I think Jason Lee was one. I mean, some of those guys got decent payoffs, but it is what it is now. But so we get up there. So Johnny Spade, I think, rides with me. And by the time we get there, I've got him so stoned, he don't know where the hell he's at. And the guy, I never even thought about this at the time booking all this shit, but all the guy had was an octagon. That's what, and a small one at that.
Yeah.
So, no wrestling ring. So, they're having their fights, and then we're also having our wrestling matches. It's like nobody wants to take a fucking bump because it's concrete, man.
Yeah.
It's like, oh my god. So I mean, it was. I got several good Johnny Spade stories, but most of them involved him getting stuck riding with me because no matter what, I was going to get him stoned out of his mind before we got there. It was just how it was, Good old days.
That's great.
Good old days.
Oh, that was great. Can you talk about working with Colorado Kid in USWA, and then what was your experience like working with him?
I really like the guy. He could be a little hard to work with. Different, and I'll just say different styles might be the best way to put it. We had, but also was helping him along as far as we were having really good matches, but he liked me and I liked him, so he wasn't about trying to take control of everything. We worked good together, and he had a lot better matches. I'm not saying just because of me, but just because I guess we were friends, Mike and I, and so we kind of clicked a little bit. But it's amazing how much better your matches can look when you're in with somebody you can click with. So
Right.
Bert Prentice, being Bert Prentice and sees this, we got married. Me and Mike Rapino worked each other a ton from TV on USWA to when Bert had his Music City Wrestling. We worked each other a bunch. And it was getting on. I mean, we were drawing pretty good, because of course Mike was his champion, and he was always main event, which sucked because that meant he was last match. He was our all damn night. Once you get past all that, I'm the main event bullshit. You really get to where hell, can I be on first? Yeah, I get the hell out of here and get my car and head on. But no, he could be difficult to work with at times, but we got along pretty good in the ring and had some, pretty decent matches. But I can't tell you how many times we worked. We worked a bunch for quite a while. Because, like I said, I made Bert, he was Bert's boy, and I made Bert's boy look good.
Look good, yeah. Yeah.
But I mean, he looked good anyway. I'm not taking nothing away from Mike at all. I still love you, Mike.
Right.
Different days, different days.
We talked about you teaming with Flash Flanagan. Can you talk about working with Flash, teaming with him against teams like Guido and Vito Andretti, the Andrettis, and then Jason Lee and Rip Rogers?
Well, man, the Andrettis, both of them good guys. Me and Flash just like chopping the shit out of people and getting our shit in, but whatnot. But we were brutal, man. We were pretty stiff to most people. The guys that were smarter and had been around for a while, like Jason Lee and whatnot, they knew, like Jason and me and Chops, he might give me one, but he protects himself after that. He ain't gonna let himself get in the spot where I'm gonna light him up with him and whatnot. And Rip was the same way. Rip would be funny as hell. Rip was, all right, get your shit in. You get one, love. That's all you're getting, because I can chop. I mean, I learned from the bad Danny Davis. And that's how, in those days, you learn how to chop by taking 1,000 of them first before you're ever allowed to give one. So, but, everybody was different. It was fun working all of them. The Andretti's, you had the best match you could with guys, and it were fun times. And then working with Rip, all three of them, me, Jason, and Flash are still being schooled and learning. And that was the good thing about working Rip. You always learn something. So good or bad. I remember a night, and Rip was a scary bastard in those days. Rip would, if you're out there and you're fucking something up and continually keep fucking up, you better look around, because Rip's hitting the ring with a kendo stick or something. He's going to beat shit out of you. I mean, that happened quite often.
Really?
Yeah, with different guys. And it was funny as hell, especially if you wasn't the one out there.
Right.
You're sitting in the locker room watching, you're waiting around. What? You know he's going to. You know he's going to. And it got to the point where even the people got to looking for it because you hear him like, "Uh-oh, here comes Rip." Yeah. But we were at the old Davis Arena. I'm wanting to say it was a 6-man tag. Or it was a tag match for sure. I'm thinking a six. I think it was a 6-way. It was me, Nick Dinsmore, and Rob Conway, and we were working Rip, Jason, and maybe Playboy David C. I can't remember really right now the third one. But I fucked up kind of. Rip called something, and I fucked up a simple spot. It was kind of pretty simple, but I quickly went over and tagged Conway, and I said, "Tell Rip I'm sorry." As I got out of the fucking ring because I knew I saw shit. Rip had a way of you didn't usually make the same mistake more than once.
Right.
After you got your ass beat the first time, you didn't want to fuck up again.
But I can imagine that would have been. I wish I would have been around going to OVW shows back then because that would have been so funny to see Rip run out there with the kendo sticks.
I think when Danny had me married to him for about a year, and there was reasons for that. He was to actually teach me how to work. To my knowledge, me and Rip are the only two in the history of wrestling at the Louisville Gardens. Me and Rip are the only two that took the match out the front doors, out in the street.
Yes. Yeah.
I don't believe anybody else ever did that at the Gardens, and we got a little heat for it afterwards. A few phone calls were made and whatnot because I think we were out there in the middle of Muhammad Ali Boulevard, wailing each other with damn weightlifting belts and shit, stopping traffic and all that. Crowd, Gardens, we were drawing pretty good in those days too. Big ass crowd trying to follow outside. So, but that was the only time we did that. But Rip was always great, man. Rip made shit so easy. Once you learned, once you find if the light bulb ever clicked on, because you could go out there and look like $1 million and do all these fancy moves, but if the light bulb never clicked on, you just that's one of those things you get it or you don't. Nobody make you understand it, but once you understand it, it just makes it so much more fun and easier. And
definitely.
The only regret I had is I didn't listen to him more about all the stupid shit. Because tell me how you feel in 20 years, love. Well, I don't really want to tell you because you're right. I'm fucking dying over here, but I wouldn't trade it for nothing. I wouldn't change nothing.
There you go. That for sure. Here's a name that, and God rest his soul, the real deal, Rod Steele. Can you talk about working with him?
It was fun because God bless him, he was terrible. But so much fun, Steel Man. That was really a sad thing. Rod was just one of them guys that you just like. Not only did he bring entertainment, to the locker room, but he was just a good old guy. And he had his little quirks and his little things, and he was just a good guy to hang out with, and him and his little buddy Lucky Sandlin at the time. And, they were the Seymour Punks.
Yeah.
But I can't ever say nothing bad about Rod. Like I said, he was just he was the shits now. I mean, he was the shits in the ring. It is what it is, but God love him. It was fun, even that. Even though that, it was fun. He was just the problem with Rod, I think, is I really thought he looked good. But his movements didn't fit his body, I guess. Like he'd be a little clumsy or whatnot, just kind of awkward for a big guy. Some big guys move like they're 5 foot, and some big guys move like they're 10 foot.
Right.
So he's a great guy. Miss him to this day. I know that really tore Rip Rogers up, because Rip trained him and broke him in and whatnot. And, unfortunately, we've lost a lot of guys over the years to silly shit or whatnot. But
yeah, this is true. Now we've talked about Flash a lot, and here's another question about Flash. One of my favorite matches that you and him had was at OVW Rock and Rumble 2000, the 30th anniversary of the Louisville Gardens. And Dutch Mantell was the referee. Can you talk about that match?
That was actually right Well, I went to Puerto Rico not long after that, but not. I'm thinking several months. But anyway, man, we just those nights. By then, you was lucky you were getting booked. I mean, if you was on those shows, because I mean that's the times we had. I think at that point, I think we had John Cena and Lesnar and all those guys. Uh, and so fortunately, we were still reveling enough that we got to be on those shows, and I don't think we ever missed one of those shows. We got booked all the time, but you really made your match worth it. You got spots on those shows. We're company. You've been there in the company forever, so you really made the best of your those matches you got to pick up. So we would again, we just go out there and lay it all in. We would lay it all in as the best we could, and we wasn't the kind of guys that planned a bunch of shit out. We didn't need to because we worked so good together anyway. But we would get there early enough to make sure we stash all of our toys. Tell everybody else don't touch our shit. Our tables and all that crap. But that night especially, Dutch, me and Dutch don't get along. Haven't spoken 23, 24 years, and that's another different story. But I still have respect for him in the wrestling business because Dutch is very, very smart. To the wrestling business, very smart. So I think that we really wanted to kind of pour it on for him too. Which by then he obviously knew who we were and then worked several shows in Memphis and whatnot. But it was just a big. I think it was sold out the Gardens, and with Dutch being the original, so to speak, hardcore from the territory, which hardcore is different back in those days, but you know what I mean.
Yeah.
It was just a special night all the way around. And I think, was that the first hardcore title?
I think so. I want to say
it might have been because we worked a couple of times those shows, and I think that one was the second one.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, because the first one a year prior was the one where I broke my hip. Did a leg drop off the top to the floor.
Right.
Table was like paper, and
yes,
loose, so I just went straight down and it knocked me out. The back of the table smacked me in the back of the head, and knocked me out for I don't know 15, 20 seconds or something. But it broke, broke it, which really I didn't realize I broke my hip till the next morning. Because your adrenaline gets unless you snap something where you can't even walk. Your adrenaline's pumping so much on that, and of course pain pills as well. And that was one thing. When you worked Flash, you went ahead and took them beforehand. You already he was going to feel afterwards. So, but yeah, that match we like built up to a year. That one, and I think that was the first hardcore. Because I was OVW's first hardcore champion and first heavyweight champion.
Yes, yeah.
So we did we painted a garbage can gold. That was the hardcore title.
Yeah, wow.
Which is a bitch to lug around. You try to run around with golden colored garbage can in your car and shit. And you have a little 2-door. You're trying to figure out get this stuff, but you're like, damn, think we get a belt?
Right.
We'll lug around this damn garbage can if you don't be careful. People's throwing garbage in it and shit. Come on, man. This is my title.
Get us a belt. Get us a championship. OVW Summer Blast 2000, you worked with Crash Holly. What was that like?
Oh, I love that little bastard. Me and him got along really good. And I remember that match. We really had a good match. And for whatever reason, I can't remember. Because that was a pretty big night, too, but it didn't draw very well. And I can't really remember why it didn't. Was it summertime? Did you say it was called Summer Blast?
Summer Blast.
Mm-hmm. I think it may be bad weather or something. But, we had been drawing really good on a weekly basis at that point. Yeah. So but something had happened that night. So, we didn't have the draw we normally did. But we had a really good little, he's a little funny ass. And his were more funny, hardcore matches, I guess. I had a couple of them with him. And because his size, and it just you can help certain shit. So his was really a lot of fun and a lot less stiff as it was with Man Flash. But great guy. He's another one. I forget how long he's been going for a while now too.
Yeah. Wow.
But they were a lot of fun. He was really good, and he was one of them. That was in WWF didn't come down and act like they were better than anybody else. Even though a lot of us was on contracts, they didn't act like they were better because you're here and they're there.
Right.
A few of them took it as a demotion, and instead of using it as being smart to hone themselves and better themselves while they're here, like Mark Henry did. They didn't take it as being demoted coming here. They took it in and took what coming here was for, to recreate yourself a little bit and get back in the habit. A lot of guys would come here off time off because we worked a lot of shows in those days, 5-6 shows a week. So
they put in night lights on?
No, they're good tonight. So anyway, Mark Henry was one of them that come in and took it for what, and Mark would tell you to this day he bettered himself so much by being here. So the guys that took it that way, that come down, really did. They bettered their careers, and that's what a lot of us guys. All of us were, not all of us, but a lot of us were basically trainers too at one point.
Yeah.
And I think that was all in the plan of Jimmy and Danny and Rick too. To really hone a handful of us. So when these guys come in, not only did they have class, but they got the in-ring experience with us.
Right.
To teach them, So I mean, the whole system worked. That's just the whole system worked. And Danny was at the helm of it. He was the one that put the right people in the right places.
Definitely. Now you mentioned working in Puerto Rico. You actually worked with Eddie Colon in Puerto Rico. What was working with him like?
Oh man, God, that was so easy because the kid was so over just because he was Carlos's son and his brother was Carlito.
Mm-hmm.
At that wasn't Carlito yet.
Right.
His brother was. That's where I met. That's where I first met Kurt Hennig, and me and Kurt got to be real good buddies. And actually, I'd met Brock Lesnar way before Brock ever got in the wrestling business.
Oh, wow.
Come to OVW, because Brock and Kurt were friends, good friends. And Kurt was trying to tell Brock, hey, big son of a bitch, money's wrestling deal, right?
Yeah.
And so, Kurt and Brock were together quite, and that's how I met Brock long before he came to OVW. Because Kurt was trying to get Brock to come to OVW then, and that was before WWE, ever had anything. We were any affiliation with them. So anyway, I got to work in Eddie because and Kurt was down there working Carlito, Carlos's other son. I can't ever remember his name honestly. The Carlito sticks in my head now. But anyway, those kids were just automatically over because of their dad. Yeah. So Eddie, a little skinny kid at the time, I think he might have just been 16, 17 years old. Oh, wow. But he was so damn easy to work with because you didn't have to do nothing.
Yeah.
You're in Puerto Rico. He's over. It was just old school Memphis style wrestling matches. And but the best part was, I was a heel down there, was a baby face fire ups and you get the whoa. I mean, it was just people throwing shit at you.
Real heat down there too.
Oh, you did, man. Oh, yeah. I got cut. I got stabbed one time. A fan reached out a little knife. All kinds of shit down there.
Oh, wow.
But yeah, man, Eddie was really fun to work. And he was in Carlos put him with me because I was teaching. Eddie was just hadn't been working that long, and he's still young.
Yeah.
So that was another advantage of being trained by Danny. People knew, they put their trust in you for shit like that because they knew you was trained, old school and correct. So, but those matches were fun because they were so easy. I mean, Scarlo let him get a little headlock takedown and maybe give me a hip toss, and I'd start the heat. That's all that mattered anyway. And then, people just can't stand you. the heat was so easy to get down there. Next thing you know, like say you do the fire up and you got the wall, and I mean the place would just explode, and you thought he was Rocky,
Wow.
But it was so easy. It was like time travel back to Memphis, like it was 30 years prior, or body slam with pin the guy,
I,
body
I,
was a finish.
and I bet when it's so easy like that, that it makes it, I guess not, I guess easier to uh, easier and more enjoyable. I guess.
Well, the better you, oh yeah, a lot more fun,
Yeah.
especially if you're the one in the ring. But you know, that's where the working part come in. When you learn how to work and you learn how to use psychology
Mm-hmm.
more than the physical aspects of it, then you got to do a lot less physical shit to get the same reaction.
Right. Right.
That Vinny, that was one of the biggest things I learned from Rick Rogers. Even after I still did all the stupid shit because that's what people wanted to see. But
Yeah.
I knew how to actually go out and work a match and not do nothing. Like Jerry Lawler, go out there and work an iron, not break a sweat. Because if you really pay attention to it, not as a fan aspect, but watching the match, trying to learn from it, hell, they ain't doing shit. Look at the people.
Mm-hmm.
And that's where the light bulbs got to click on. So that just made everything so much easier. So, like, working guys like Eddie, Cologne down there that's already over because of his family name. And the kid was pretty good for even being green. That he listened very well to me. He wasn't arrogant by any means. This is my daddy's company. It wasn't all that bullshit. We had some really good matches, really good matches. There was a couple of times the fans, filled the ring up. I had to get the hell out of there and get the hell out of there quick when he got the 1, 2, 3 on me because they'd fill up the ring and be picking him up and shit like damn, you felt like a Rocky movie or something.
Right.
And we're a little like San German or Ponce or something. What the hell's going on here?
Let's go back a couple of years. So when you were running OVW and booking OVW, what was that time period like for you?
Stressful, as stressful can get. Fun, fun to a point. Again, I love Danny Davis like a father always will. And the OVW was going through some pretty hard times at that point. And I originally come back to do road shows to set up spot shows and try to help generate more revenue for the company because Danny was spending all of his personal money, and things were getting tight all the way around. And a lot of things wasn't being handled right. Danny's old school, and it was just hard for Danny to sit there and watch his company dwindle away.
Mm-hmm.
So I come in originally to start doing some spot shows, and I started getting a few set up. The kid that was in charge of doing spot shows at the time that I was basically coming in to replace is what was the thing that happened. He developed this idea of a map of the area. Okay, we table. Of course, he's going to give me the shit areas that there's.
Yeah.
Now you're going to run. There's not 40 people in the whole community. Shit like that. But anyway, I guess at one point Danny had enough of the screw ups and shit not working right and whatnot. So then I basically, he just basically handed me the company because he knew I would run it like he wanted it run, old school. And he knew, I was set up to fail. We had nothing personal with anybody, but we had no names.
Mm-hmm.
It was no longer affiliated with anybody else, WWE or any of that. So we had none of that. And we just had our local TV. We wasn't drawing, TV wasn't drawing 50 people.
Wow.
Saturday night special might draw, that was the only good show of the month. And that's because most of the guys sold tickets to it.
Mm-hmm.
So, you get 10 guys that sell 10, 15 tickets each. Well, there's, 150, 200 people right there. So things wasn't going good. So I just, did all I could with what I had. And I had a lot of help from Adam Revolver and Gilbert Corsi, and other folks as well that was there to help. But it was a tough task because, you had to start by, creating, we had some over people, Michael Hayes, Here I go with names again. It's terrible. But anyway, we had some guys that were over, but as a show as a whole, take away Saturday Night Special, and things wasn't being set up neither. Spot shows got no TV time.
Yeah.
I run things a whole lot more like Memphis days, to where the towns that we're actually running are actually being advertised on TV.
Being advertised.
Because that's what TV is for, is your advertisement for your house shows.
Yeah.
But this was completely opposite. I'm like, so I was able to build some towns back up. I was told E-Town was dead, not to waste my time, and I didn't believe that. E-Town was an old school wrestling town, and they wanted old school wrestling, so we was able to get back into E-Town. Got it back up to, I think, averaging like $265 a month, which just people listening might not think it's a lot of people, but again, you got to look at, we probably run 3-4 shows a week in a 100-mile radius, the same area, off the same TV. We wasn't on a good channel, and we didn't have any names.
Yeah.
So, that was actually, to do that once a month. And then other shows that, we draw 100, 150 here and there, but it kept the doors open. And slowly climbed back, and then, things started getting hot, and things got pretty good there for a while. And I just had a problem. I had a lot of help on the outside too. Me and Jerry Jarrett got to being pretty good buddies over the years, and Jerry helped me a lot with TV because I wasn't a writer, I was a producer, director. I'm a damn wrestler, but I was taught and trained old school, so I knew what it took to make it work. But how do you do it? So Jim Cornette helped me with the how to setting up the format for TV. Jerry Jarrett helped me kind of, he would watch our TV and, he'd critique and, hey, this guy. So I had a lot of help from a lot of people because I was learning as well. So I never wrote TV for anything. But we got things going again and things picked back up and was able to keep the doors open. And then, things slowly got better as time went. I just had a problem dealing with the younger people because I'm so old school. It would kill me that somebody didn't show up. Sometimes you go do a house show, and man, a lot of times I'd sweat just if I'm gonna have anybody there set up the ring. It's like, man, in my day that was mandatory. So times had changed, and I had problems with that. So your ass can't be here to do this. You ain't gonna, work.
Right.
And, had to have wrestlers scored a few times because I'd catch guys lying to me. I had to work late. Well, your boss is standing right here, and he said you got off early because you want to go and take a nap.
Wow.
Or you spend the whole week putting the TV together, and then Wednesday night TV taping, 6 o'clock, 6:30, somebody comes up to you and, hey, I just got a text for so-and-so. He said his shoulder's hurting. He's not going to be here.
Wow.
What? He's got a 7.5-minute segment. And he's not going to be here because his pussy-ass shoulder's hurting.
Right.
In my day, the shit better be broken, sticking out the skin, or your ass finishes the job.
Yeah.
So I had a big problem with that. That was probably my biggest issues. Was you just couldn't be as hard on them as it was on you. And I don't regret any of the way I was brought into the business because it taught me respect and to respect the business that I'll always have. So that was probably my biggest issues was that I had a lot of fun, and I didn't dislike none of those kids, man. They're just different generation, for the most part, most of them was a good group of people. And, and they worked hard. They did. They just, but you could really tell a difference in the one that just, really dedicated compared to the ones that wasn't, and there's been heat for whatever reason between me and Michael Hayes for a long time now over some stupid shit, I'm sure. But, I had a ton of respect for him, not only because he served his country and the things that happened to him, but, that he reminded me of me in some ways, where he wasn't going to let nothing stop him follow his dreams.
Right.
He's learning how to wrestle with a prosthetic leg. So we had some good people. It was just different times in those days. But dealing with and I used Michael a lot of times back in those days. I'm like, look, man, we got a guy in here that said, 3rd-degree burns or whatever over 2/3 of his body, and he's got a prosthetic leg, and he's not over a bitching.
Yeah.
about this hurting or that hurting, and you're gonna call me because your pussy's hurting. Yeah,
Right. Right. And about that when you say that you built up, you got E Town built up, that's
we
valid. I went to those E Town shows. I drove from Louisville to E Town going to those shows. I, that would be my Saturdays. I'd go to those whenever once a month, and then if there was a show the next Saturday over at Colgate Gym when y'all
Yeah,
were run over
some
there.
areas you just couldn't, no matter what you did, and a lot of it was because we just polluted this area.
Mm.
We had most of the time, counting TV in Louisville every Wednesday, we had at least 2 shows local,
Yeah.
and Vets Post down in Portland, Derby City,
Expo
the
5, yeah.
Expo 5. I mean, man, we was polluted, and
Yeah.
still, like I said, people say 150, 200 people don't sound like much. Well, when you're doing that 3 or 4 nights a week in the same damn town it is.
Yeah.
And then we got we got to and I didn't get E Town built up all by myself by no damn means. All the guys really, listen, like, hey, this is our old school show. This is our show where we're gonna do shit old school. First, guys in these other matches, watch these matches. Don't go out and do the same shit the guy did in the match before you, and learn how to build the show per match. You can't give them a main event match first matched out. Now, what's the guys later on? You got to build the whole show as it goes, and the guys listening, and it all made it work because all of us doing our part.
And then another thing I loved about those, especially those E-Town shows, it seemed like you was building the TV, like you would promote those, especially with the E-Town shows, you would promote the whatever the feature match was on TV.
I had to fight tooth and nail to get that done. Because it just at the time Adam Revolver was part of writing TV and whatnot. And they just, it was like they couldn't stand to give me 30 seconds or a minute time to promote. And it went to these house shows, and then it went to I got nothing to. I get a 10-second black block with town and date real quick. What happened in the old days? What made you want to go to the Louisville Gardens? Because Lance Russell's sitting there telling you what a card it's going to be and about the matches. That's why you went.
Yeah.
We don't have, so that helped a lot too. Started getting some of the storylines because TV mostly all storylines were geared for the Saturday night special each month.
Mm-hmm.
So I was able to start getting my own little storylines in some of these house shows like E-Town, and then getting them popped up on TV, and then eventually got to where we would use some of the TV to build for E-Town, and that's what helped a lot of those towns.
Yes. No, I remember that too for sure. Any stories of working with guys?
Sorry to interrupt, but bringing back some of my old school friends too, helped bring credibility to the shows again out there. Like Tracy Smothers come out and work for me several times. Bill Dundee,
yes.
People like that. So and E-Town was one of those towns that everybody knew who they were. Mm-hmm. So it just a lot of things clicked to make it work, but it wasn't easy. But we all worked together and got it done.
Definitely. Any stories of working with guys at that time, such as Rob Terry? Of course, we mentioned Johnny Spade, Jason Wayne. You mentioned Michael Hayes, and then Tony Gunn. Just to name a few of the names.
Oh, man, I always liked and respected Tony. He's still working. Michael Hayes, like I said, we've had our issues, but man, Rob Terry, I love Rob Terry. Was a great guy. We had fun in those days with those guys. Man, what was the one guy's name? I'd rib everybody. That was the thing. Not like I did back in the days I was working full time, but I would rib a lot of the guys. I'm trying to think of who it was in Indiana. One time I waited till after his match, and I come back and say, "Hey man, the athletic commission's here. I need to see your license real quick." And he's like, "Oh, this is Kentucky's. I need Indiana's." Oh man, I ain't got it. What? What do you mean you ain't got Indiana's? They're gonna fucking shut us down because I'll let you work without a license, and there's not a commission over there. And he said, "Oh my God, man, I'm sorry. I'll pay the fine, whatever. I'll pay the fine, man. I'm sorry." Can't remember who that was. It wasn't Rob Terry, but somebody you know, and I say I get if I don't speak to you on a regular basis anymore, names are bad. But I do shit like I made it fun. We tried to make it fun.
Yeah.
I probably did bitch and yell too much. But again, man, people don't realize the responsibility I had. I was responsible for the whole damn company, from TV to spot shows to all of it. From
Mhm.
tickets to getting the posters done. There wasn't nothing I didn't do.
Yeah.
And I think that's why Danny threw it at me, because he knew I'd do it. And he knew I'd do it the way he wanted, whether other people liked it or not. He knew I would do it the way he wanted it done.
Exactly.
So, but it was very stressful, but, a lot of good times. I met a lot of good friends, some of the newer guys that I stayed friends with, through those years. And, it was, OVW was my home, no matter all the places and where I went to. I may not be a fan of it now, but the OVW will always be, the old school OVW to me.
Yeah. Yeah.
I was myself and several others were a big part of the reason why OVW is there today. So my
Sure.
biggest thing I can say to any of those guys and girls over there now, I wish you nothing the best. Good luck to you, but don't forget on and don't shit on us old guys, because if it wasn't for us, you wouldn't have your platform now.
That's true, and that's valid, and I agree. That's something that.
'Cause I promise you, there was a few times OVW's doors were shutting.
Oh yeah, I've heard the stories.
Early on to even 10 years ago when I was
Hmm.
there. But there wasn't nothing I wouldn't do for Danny or the company at all.
Definitely.
It probably my biggest Achilles heel was that I was a company man, and maybe I should have looked out more for myself. But I was all about, because Danny, the love I had for it, because Danny gave me the platform to live my dream. So
Definitely.
that would probably been the only thing I might have changed some, is to worry about myself more than just the company. So
There was speaking of Danny, there was a match on a Saturday Night Special. It was a 6-man tag match involving yourself, Danny Davis, and Jeff Jarrett against Big John, Eric Locker, and Josh Ashcraft. Uh, that was I was at that show. I was at that Saturday Night Special. I think there was a meet and greet beforehand. That was really
we
awesome.
finished it with the Fargo strut.
And yes, and I have a picture of that too, and on my Facebook. And what was that match like for you?
That was fun as could be, man. That was only maybe the second or third time I ever even got to work with Jeff. Either, and I think it was always the few times I got to work with Jeff. The few other times was in Nashville, and it was involved in 6-man.
Mm-hmm.
But Jeff, like I said, Jeff was always good to me too. Jeff was great, and his dad obviously. But that was just fun, because across the ring you got 3 guys that are, they're there learning for every other green.
Yeah.
But then on my side, the history and the experience is unlimited. So it was so easy and so much fun. The shit like that, you don't even feel like you're working. You just feel like a kid in a toy box or sand.
Right.
You're just out there having fun pouring sand over yourself. Those matches were great. That's what I loved. When Danny come back and worked a little bit with me there towards the end.
Yes.
Butter, man. Butter. It don't get any easier than that. Because you're working with guys that taught you, and they get outwork you. So it was just great. And the fan reaction, even then, it was like the fans reacting to some bunch of old guys out there that should have hung it up a long damn time ago. But we're still doing our thing, and we're still drawing some money.
Yeah, no, y'all were, and that was a great match. Like I said, that was one of my favorite Saturday Night Specials for sure of that time. Now let's talk about what you're doing nowadays, just a little bit. You are now a horse trainer and training horses. How did you get into that?
My grandfather trained horses, so from the earliest memories I got as a kid, it was wrestling at noon on Saturdays and at the track. My grandfather had a couple of horses back in the day, and just I grew up, I grew up around the racetrack. Probably one of the main reasons that I didn't get into horse training early on is because I was smart enough to realize I didn't have the patience. And when you're dealing with animals, especially thoroughbred racehorses, you got to have patience. Um, and that was one of the smartest moves I made at the time was not do this. But I still try. I trained horses on and off, even back my full time wrestling days. I just kept maybe one horse for myself and had somebody maybe work for me and help me out with it because I couldn't be there every day. But I was never out of it. I was always involved in it in a little bit, and then the last 16 years I got into it more heavily and more full time. And then when I was running OVW. I still trained for a little bit, and then I took a little bit of break, and just concentrate on OVW for a while, and then I don't know, 6-8 years ago, I got to picking it back up full time, and it's what I love to do. It's my passion as much as the wrestling business ever was, and it's strangely there's a lot of similarities in this, up and the traveling up and down the roads, the paying your dues, doing what you need to do to make this work and that work, and so in a way, there's a lot of similarities.
And it must be so cool to be around those horses and everything. And
It is, man. These days, because of all the stupid shit me and Flash did, and the stupid shit I did myself as well, I deal with a lot of depression sometimes. Well, really daily. But and with the concussions and the memory loss, I deal with a lot of physical and mental stuff these days. But the horses are like my getaway, so to speak. When I'm around my animals, my horses, they take all that away.
yeah.
So there might be 5 of the 7 days a week. It's all I can to make myself get out of bed to get here. But then once I get here, I'm great. It's so, but it's my grandfather who was the greatest man ever in my life. You feel like a sense that they're still around you and things like that. But I love the competition. I love this is something actually that you're competing against other trainers. Obviously, you got to have the right horse, but you got to have horses that can run. But I go in this with the confidence I do with anything else. People give me horses that can run, I'll get the run out of them. But we're not magicians. You give us horses that can't run, we can't. There's nothing we can do about it. But yeah, I'll do this. Man, I've been doing this full time for the last 8 years since I retired from OVW. But on and off for the last 16. And I love it, man. I kind of, it's a hit and miss game. It's feast or famine. You might, starve on ramen noodles for 6 months, and then you eat Ruth Chris for the next 2 weeks. And that 6 months of ramen noodles is worth the 2 months. It's just there's nothing more amazing than standing in the winter circle with your horse, getting your picture made, and the horses know. Horses know when they win. They know what's up.
Hey, my man.
All right, hold on one second. Thank you, Aaron. You're off tomorrow, so we'll see you Monday.
Yeah, see you Monday.
All right, thank you, buddy.
Do you have any plans on running any horses in the Derby coming up this year? Or
I mean, all of us want to. I think it's all of our main goals. But you got to have the horses. You got to have the right owners to invest that kind of money.
Of course,
I deal with more blue collar, people, more guys like us and that's who I would prefer to train for. Guys that can't afford to do this by themselves, so they'll get a group of 4 or 5. Because this is a very expensive. It's not called the Sport of Kings for nothing.
Right.
Very expensive. So it's hard for a lot of guys that want to get involved in this to do it by themselves. Because it's basically somebody's average paycheck, per week, just take care of a horse. So, guys get together, get groups 4 or 5 together, 10, whatever. They make it to where it's affordable, and they get to have a good time and enjoy the racing, the competitiveness of it, and you can make some money. If things go right, there's a lot of money to be made. But if things go wrong, there's a lot of money to lose. But there's nothing more rewarding. We do this 7 days a week, 365 days a year. You don't get Christmas off. You don't get Thanksgiving. You get whole holidays. Horses are just like taking care of a baby at home. There ain't a day off.
Right.
So you get something like wrestling. You got to be completely dedicated because, why else would you want to do this 7 days a week? You know, it's like the wrestling business. You got to be completely dedicated, or you're not going to make it.
Of course.
So
Of
it's,
course.
we've done, for the kind of horses we deal with, me and my team, we've done a pretty decent job with what we have. We deal with a lot of crazy, got a reputation of I'm good with crazy horses or this or that. So for some reason now we get stuck with a lot of them. And but we just a lot of TLC and time, and we get the best out of our horses. That much I'll say.
Definitely, definitely, and that's really cool that it's a team thing, and I really like that. That's really cool.
It is. There's a lot of trainers you'll hear on TV. There ain't no I and shit.
Yeah,
It's I've got grooms, hot walkers, exercise riders, your blacksmith to your dentist, to your vet. I mean, this is a whole team effort. And the thing about being a trainer is you got to make sure everybody's doing their part. If
hmm
everybody is doing their job, then I can do my job, and then it usually works out in the end. But if you got one piece of that puzzle that's not fitting correctly, it don't work out too well. So
right.
it's really more of a big chess game, honestly.
Yeah,
But
yeah,
you still got to know how to take care of your horses. That's for damn sure. You got to care for the horses is most important, and you better know what you're doing because
for
you can
sure.
mess one up real quick, if not physically, mentally. So
Oh, definitely. Now, while wrapping this up, I want to just ask you: is there anything, if you could go back and change anything in your career, is there anything you would do differently? If yes, why?
probably a couple things, honestly. I was pretty much of a wild card for a long time, which caused me problems. It was all self inflicted. Um, and I think that took some promoters. They was a little bit more leery of booking me because I didn't do nothing against the business stuff by no means or anything like that. But I was just a wild, stupid son of a bitch, fighting all the time, getting arrested, stupid shit, fighting and just thinking you're invincible. I would have probably changed my attitude a little bit towards that. That realize that I wish I'd go back and tell that stupid kid you're not invincible. And like I said earlier too, I wish I would have, as much as I love Danny Davis in the OVW, I wish I would have maybe concentrated on actually putting myself over more than just the company, because I think in the end, it hurts you, where a lot of guys I thought at the time seemed selfish. It was all about them, but in the end, that's probably what it should have been all about anyway.
hmm
So, but other than that, really, there's not much I would really go back to. I mean, other than a couple minor things. I love the business. I love the way I got in it. The time I spent in it, over 20, almost 30 years. Uh, the wrestling business made me who I am now. So, I'm pretty happy with where I'm at in life right now. So, if I went back and changed anything, then I might not be doing what I'm doing today. So,
Doing what you're doing today. Yeah, yeah, and there you go. That's a quite a thing to say too. And I'm glad that you're happy. I'm glad that you're happy where you're at, and that everything's going good for you.
I do my best. I mean,
Yeah,
there might be some things I change as far as how I maybe talk to certain, a few people, or
yeah,
but in the end, you know, I could at least I done it right. No matter what, I might have been an asshole to deal with, but again, the stress that I had, people didn't realize. Um, but all in all, no, we're good.
yes, sir. Well, hey, Trash, I'd like to thank you again for coming on the show, and wish you the best of luck in your training. Keep continued success in your training of the horses, and keep on loving those horses.
No problem, man. That's definite. It's good talking to you. Appreciate you having me, and I hope everything works out your way and you get your show moving along.
Thank you. I appreciate it.
No
Thanks,
problem,
man.
buddy. You have a good day.
You too.